Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Sharing His Light. Before we get into this video, I invite you to like, share, subscribe, and turn on that notification bell for more videos. So, what will you do if you were given a command by the Lord not to do something? Furthermore, what will you do if you knew that decision will cost you your job? Will you compromise your belief in Yahuwah? Will you fall victim to the dictates of man? No, I was commanded by Yahuwah, the great I am, a higher, not to take the COVID-19 vaccine. You want to know when this happened? In October 2021, in the dead of the night, Yahuwah knocked on my door, as he had done previously when he needed my attention. And he said to me, absolutely, under no circumstances are you to take the vaccine. And what was my response? I said, yes, Lord, I will comply. So, in the months following that encounter with Yahuwah, I knew that things were going to take a turn for the worst as regards my employment. But what happened? Yahuwah showed up in a vision to reassure me that he is the ruler of all things and that he will deliver me from the hands of my enemies and that he will take care of me. On Sabbath morning, 16th April 2022, I had a vision. And in this vision, I was sojourning along a dark and lonely pathway when a gentleman about mid-60s graced me with his presence, and he joined in conversation with me. When we got to a fork in the road, we made a right turn and proceeded down another path. But as we got to the end of that path, he proposed to take me down another path. But I objected, and so we walked back to the original path where we came from. But as we got to the end of the road, he said to me, goodbye. And I said, goodbye. But I called him a name. And he said to me, that's not my name. My name is Nathaniel. And I said, goodbye, Nathaniel. As soon as I said goodbye, Nathaniel, I was joined by another gentleman. This gentleman was younger. He was wearing tattoos and embodied the persona of a thug, a bad boy. As soon as we began to walk, gunshots resounded from out of nowhere. And this gentleman, in a rush of adrenaline, jumped in front of me to protect me and also to protect himself. He returned fire, and in the process, he was shot. As I looked at him, I couldn't help but feel sorry for him. So I helped him to safety to the downstairs of an unfinished building. But whilst we were there, the gentleman was writhing in pain and blood was flowing from his right side. And I am there looking at this gentleman and I am wondering, why isn't he calling the police? Why isn't he asking for an ambulance? And all of these questions pervaded my mind. Then I noticed the gentleman picked up a piece of paper and a pen and began to hastily write on the paper. And in my mind, as he was writing, all I could think of was, this man is making his will. Because as you know, I'm an attorney, so those are the things that pervaded my mind. As if that paper was too small, the gentleman picked up a notebook and he began to scribble hurriedly on that notebook. So I said to him, "Do you want me to call an ambulance? Do you want me to call the police?" And as soon as I said that, like clockwork, the gentleman said yes. And two men appeared from out of nowhere. They walked towards the young man and he left, flanked by the two young men on his right side and on his left side, and he began to limp away. Before they exited where I was, one of them turned to me and he said, "Don't you want to know what he wrote on that paper?" But before I could even answer, he said, "He left all of his possessions for you." And I stood there in amazement. I didn't know what to say. So I turned around. As they left, I turned around and I took up the notebook and began to read. As I began to read, I saw a little girl standing next to me. I glanced at her. She had golden hair and she was smiling. I glanced back at the notebook and continued to read. By this time, I noticed that the words on the notebook began to illuminate. They began to get bold and bright, and as if they were coming out of the notebook. And that line that I read Psalms 50 in gold. By this time, I realized that I am having a vision. So now I am in my mind trying to record every bit of revelation so that I can relate to the world. As I continued to read, I saw Psalms 40 pop up the same way as Psalms 50 did. By this time, I looked back at the little girl and she smiled at me. As I looked back at the book, I now realized that my spirit was lifted and I am now suspended in midair. And as I looked down, I saw a land that I never saw before. There was a mountain that had water encircling it. And that water was the most beautiful sapphire blue I had ever seen. And the top of that mountain was overlaid with alabaster or ivory color. And on top of that was interspersed rubies or carbuncle. As I looked again to my right, I saw trees interspersed and the land was very green. There was a mountain range in the background and there was a marble pavement. And as I looked, I saw what appeared to be the spirit of a golden lion leap from the mountain and onto the platform, onto the pavement. And as the lion leapt from the pavement, it stood still, took one step, looked at me. And as I am there looking at it, I heard the voice of one speaking, the voice of a man, and his voice was like the echo of the waves in the sea. And as this gentleman spoke, the lion looked at me. And in my bewilderment, in my amazement, I could not say a word. I could only mutter the question, "What is this?" And the voice said to me, "That is the Spirit of the Most High." And as I looked, I saw a building, and the roof of that building was gold. And as I looked again, I saw 4 images moving at the speed of lightning, but these images were golden, and they indeed looked like lightning. And I asked again, "What are those?" And the voice said to me, "Those are angels." And the vision ended. So what is my takeaway from this? I have learned that Yahuwah is the God of all creation. He created everything. As he said in Psalm 50, if he was hungry, he will not tell me, because the cattle upon 1,000 hills is his. He does not require the sacrifices, my sacrifices. All he requires is obedience from me and to do his will. He spoke in Psalm 50 of ills in society and of the things which men do to each other. And in Psalms 40, he reassures that he will take care if we could only call upon him. So my encouragement for those of you who have had similar experiences or similar commands is to obey, and you will be rewarded in due course. In the book of Acts, chapter 5, Peter and the disciples were dragged before the courts for obeying Yahuwah's commands by spreading his message. And what did they respond by saying? They said, "We ought to obey God rather than men." And this should be our mantra every single day that we live on this earth. Every minute that is lent to us by the Most High. This should be our resolve, that we obey his commands. For we know that many are the tribulation of the righteous. And we know that in everything, in prayer and supplication, we must make our requests known to the Almighty, and he will grant us the desires of our hearts. And we know that we ought to trust in him, as the scripture says, "Trust in the Lord and lean not unto your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path." So stand firm no matter what comes your way. Stand firm, for you know that you will inherit a crown of glory. You know that greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. Our Redeemer lives, and he will stand for us. He will stand up for us when we stand up for him, when we stand up for what is right, when we do his will, when we resolve within ourselves that we are not going to obey the commands and the dictates of mere mortals, whom the Lord can say today, your time is up. I applaud those of you who have taken a stance with respect to this job. Give praises to the Almighty. Stand firm, hold fast, and you will inherit glories when the Almighty returns.